What's up, everybody? It's your boy, Mr. 0-3, Z-Money, and we are back with the latest installment of your future kids' favorite segment, Zachetology. A recent study showed that playing back these Zachetology videos to infants highly increased the usage of the words trash, garbage, and money in their vocabulary. So for all of you with young kids, I think it's a no-brainer. Get this bad boy on repeat. It's another great season of the RBSL. And normally I talk about how the first round of the playoffs are the greatest time of the year, and this is our favorite sim, and that is usually true. Although I'm not convinced that this season that is true. It's going to be fun. It's going to be very good. I'm going to enjoy it a lot because I'm in the playoffs, and this is very likely the only time I'm going to be in the playoffs this season. But I won't lie. The matchups are not as good as in previous years. I think there's about 2.5 real matchups in this first round. Usually we're getting like 4 or 5. The insane stratification of the East and the West is just causing problems for the parity of the league. But I think the upside of it is we're going to get some bangers when we get later in like the second round in the Eastern and the conference finals, especially in the West. It's going to be bananas. Before we go into the individual matchups, I already kind of got started on it, but let's talk about the overall bird's eye view of the season, how we got here. I think a lot of people thought, myself included, that this was finally going to be the season where the East gets a little better, starts figuring its shit out, and the West falls back to earth. There was a bunch of various moves that I think made this seem like it was going to happen. We had Mobley going to the East. Max, a very good GM. In fact, like the best GM historically, joined the East. Kyle, another very good GM who joined the East recently, had a little time to build his team. He's got Zealy. Meanwhile, on the West, a lot of the teams that have been the classic top teams, the Nuggets, the Grizz, the Jazz, all are kind of at the age border. It seems like they might be about to age out. Every star player is like 30. Cam Turner's 30. Damon Vogel's 30. Arden Justice is 30, or he's 31. Brian Arroyo's like 32. Jalen Suggs is like 30. So it felt like we may get that shift back to parity. Newsflash, we did not. And actually, there's an argument to be made that this year, of this kind of last 7 or 8 year period where it's been super unbalanced, it's actually the most unbalanced it's ever been, and the West is the best it's ever been, and the East is the worst it's ever been. In the East, the Nets came up out of nowhere, which is great. I guess they didn't come out of nowhere. Everybody expected the Nets to be good this season. The Nets delivered. All of their players lived in TC, and they got another plus TC to Daniel Puentes, I believe. I think he's green-blue now, and he was green-green before. It's really ridiculous. Idwin's caught every break, along with having a fantastic in-game luck rating. But the Wizards, Brian and Bryant always trip me up. The Wizards decided to tank in the middle of the season. The Raptors, while I'll get to the individual move in their matchups, really just like threw absolutely everything away. The Hawks, which were good, have completely aged out. They're trash now. So everybody's dropping off on the East. Meanwhile, in the West, the talent reshuffling it never stops. And like the insanity of the West is that like the Sonics, who are the 7th seed, have an 8.7 net margin. Teams have won championships with an 8.7 net margin. Idwin's Bean Dip Lakers had like an 8 point something margin. Dave Berrigan's or Mantis's Cam Turner Spurs won with a similar margin. There is a 7 seed that like has the stats of a championship winning team. It's absolutely insane. And the 8 seed, the Mavericks, are no joke either. So anyways, the West is very good. The East is very bad. No matter what happens here, I would be shocked. This is the year where I would be shocked if the East wins. Like, at least Gasper used to have a good team. Now I feel like even Gasper's team is just not to the quality of the best in the West. So we've got the matchups on screen. The Grizz Mavs, Clippers Rockets, Nuggets Thunder, Jazz Sonics, Hawks Cavs, Celtics Raptors, Pistons Sixers, Nets Wizards. I'm going to start from the bottom and go up because I love to prioritize my conference in the West at the end. So the Nets and Wizards, this isn't even a series, to be completely honest. I'm just going to get this out of the way quick. This is going to be 4-0 for the Nets. The Wizards are were a fine team. I think like Brian had been going to the Eastern Conference Finals. God, East and West can't get it right. Brian had been going to the Eastern Conference Finals with this whole Ricky Trapp, Owen Lamb Jr. There's one other guy on this team I'm forgetting, but with that squad. But at the same time, it never really felt like a championship squad. It was just like a good round 2 team in the West. Maybe not even a round 2 team. So I really agree with Brian's choice to tear it all down. Because that team had already peaked. Ricky Trapp's getting old. Even Owen Lamb is starting to... I think he's a little younger. He's like 28, so he had some years left. But, like, there was just no competition against the best in the West or in Gaspard. The window didn't make sense. The East is so bad that even though Brian tanked for quite literally half the season, he traded everybody, he still made the playoffs because everybody else is so terrible. The Nets have a good squad. I don't think the Nets are a championship team. I think they had some crazy good luck. Their margin looks good because they're playing against Eastern trash. The Nets did not do that fantastic of a job winning against the top teams. And when you look at their players, even though there's a bunch of super great high potential guys, Gasper Penn, Justin Watchman, Olin Harris, the big men are not quite filled out yet. Olin Harris is still a few TCs away. This team could make the finals, and if they do, they'll get washed by whoever's in the West. But this is just a building season. But that being said, when you're playing a team with a losing record and a negative margin in the first round, it's going to go well for you. So the Nets are going to slap the Wizards. Next round. Okay, so this is one series that I think is okay, although I don't think it's going to be great. We have a little good lore for the league with the Emilio Zealy Pacers playing the Evan Mobley 76ers for the crown of who was really carrying the Portland Trailblazers all those seasons. I think we already know the answer to that. It was the 76ers. This is a reverse 5-4, or a reverse 4-5, so the Sixers are going to get home field advantage. See, and here I am saying home field like I've been watching fucking baseball, which I have. But anyways, the 76ers is really just the Evan Mobley show. The 76ers have some other pieces, so it's not like totally the Evan Mobley show, but it's not very good. In fact, it's very representative of the old Blazers. They have JRE as the power forward, small forward guy, and then some like defensive guards, Gaston Ahern, Ciro Corhuango, Dve Star. This team is pretty bad. Oh, and there's Moto as the backup center on the Blazers. This team is basically just Evan Mobley. It feels like Jack took the idea of like what good GMs do, where good GMs build a core of star players to carry the offense and then fill it in with useful defensive guys. I think the miscalculation Jack made is that Evan Mobley is fantastic and does score 35 points a game, but he is not an entire offense, and Jack is just missing offense. I don't think this team's offense is particularly good. I think it's ranked like 15th in the league. So I don't really love the Sixers in terms of like championship level threat, but they don't have to win the championship right now. They just have to beat the Pistons. And the Pistons have a fun team. Obviously, Zealy is kind of meme scoring at the point guard slot. They've got two good defensive big men, William John and Cuello, and then kind of just like a stable of hyper athletes that are all yellow and just do nothing but jump and put the ball in the hole. Kyle's namesake, Derek Justice, guys like this. Look, I think Mobley's going to win. We've seen both of these players in action, Mobley and Zealy, for a long time, and it's always the same story. Zealy totally crumbles in the playoffs. Jack has quality perimeter defenders. I think Jack just needs to like start Gaston Ahern and Ciro Corhuango and like just assume they'll do good enough. If Jack can get Ciro Corhuango on Zealy, it's really over. I mean, Ciro has everything on Zealy. He's got the size. He's got the good defensive ratings. Yes, he's an inefficient jump shooter, but like it doesn't matter because you can turn Zealy into an even more inefficient jump shooter. I don't know if Cuello and William John really have enough defensive stats to stop Mobley. Yeah, I think Cuello is still now he's an A- post defender. And then I know William John is also not an A+ guy. He is a B post defender. So like the size is good there, but Mobley's already unstoppable. So I think Mobley's really just going to tear through the Pistons. I'm feeling a 4-2 in favor of Jack. So Jack gets back in the playoffs, although it is winning against a pretty mediocre Eastern squad. The Pistons won the division with a plus-minus of like 4. And that's no hate to Kyle. Like, he's winning the division like good GMs do. But man, how bad is the East? Next up, we have the Celtics-Raptors. So the Celtics, this is the same squad as always. Clint Cochran, Cade Cunningham, Cletus Millet. I don't know. How do people feel about those soft consonants? Let me know. At the end of the day, this is probably the championship favorite in the East. Everybody is still doing their same thing. I think the bench around this team is worse than it has been. Guys like Ozymandias Constantinople, who was that great point guard, is gone. Did this team have Carroll Jordan in this earlier iterations? Like, there were other good scorers on this team. Right now, it is really like the 3 and not a lot else that I like. But that's still enough, I think, to get out of the East. So I won't talk too much about the Celtics. I want to talk about the Raptors. The Raptors made maybe, I think, the single worst free agency move I've ever seen last season, signing Sestjaslav and Asht, whatever his name is, to a 4-year, $50 million deal. The Raptors have an all right team. Adam Hilton is not dead yet. I like Larry Escobedo as like a 3rd or 4th best player on the team, which I think he could have been for this team, right? I like Roberto Zubero. He's a really good all-around shooting guard, small forward. Like, the Zubero Escobedo is like your shooting guard, small forward is like a fun, pretty flexible, high-powered offense way to win a lot of games. But like Sestjaslav, whatever his fucking name is, he's a tank commander. He's awful. This man is scoring 21 points with a usage of 25, and he's scoring like 52% true shooting. You know his defense is garbage because he's got F- quickness and F- strength. It's just unacceptable that Marco made this decision. Like, it wasn't just, usually bad GMs will be too passive and just not make moves and let their team kind of go by them. So in that sense, I think it's good Marco did something. But this was a very actively harmful move. There are so many big men that Marco could have signed for similar money that, like, he did it. Or for way cheaper and gotten way more impact. So that move is just so stupid. The Raptors are going to get annihilated. I'm feeling maybe, do I even want to give them 1 just like Adam Hilton has a huge game? No, because I'm mad about this move and it got me all pissed off. The Raptors are about to get slapped. This is frustrating just because, like, Marco was never going to win the championship with this team, but, like, that move was just such trash. Such trash. All right. On to the Hawks and the Cavs. This is a fun series. This series, at least the winner doesn't seem super clear. The Hawks are, I was going to say, an interesting team. Interesting in the sense that, like, there's nuance to talk about, but not interesting in the sense that I hate this team. This team has kind of like aged out really hard. There was, they traded away Gervasio Chavez. Jason Cartier is like finally fully dead. He is just scoring below 55% true shooting. His defensive stats are, like fading. He's a C+ perimeter defender. Cartier is just pretty dead. Chuck McKenzie, I don't know if he minus TC'd, but he just is panning out as not a great player. He's got the profile of a guy who, if he hit a plus TC, could be a great guard, but he did not become a great guard. So he's an inefficient scorer. He's not a good enough defender. Santi Aldama and Jules Jimenez is like the front court. They're just so unathletic. The ratings are not awful. Jules Jimenez is a fine defender. Santi Aldama looks like he's got a bag on offense, and he gets boards, but like the athleticism, it's so terrible. And then there's really nothing in between what I just mentioned for this team. Sandro Mamukelashvili, although he was good once upon a time, is now old as fuck. Charlie Cover, way too old. It's just an ugly team. This team, the fact that they won as many games as they did, that they won 48 and had a plus minus of 4, honestly shocking to me. But then again, when you realize you're in a division with 4 other losing teams and some teams that wanted to tank for a while, maybe it's less crazy. But I don't like the Hawks. Now, all that being said, the Hawks have home court advantage, and they're up against the Cavs, who are a team, this is a very Jesse team in the sense that, like, okay, if I had Efren Strong, Horacio Soda, and Maximo Presidio, I feel like I could probably win 50 games. Jesse obviously did not do that. He won 42, and I think he had a negative net margin. No, he had a net margin of 0.1. Just came out positive. Well done, Jesse. Outside of those three players, there's John Oliver, who I don't hate. He's like John Oliver would be like a fine sixth man, which I think is the role he's playing on this team. I hate everyone else on this team. This bench is just offensively bad. Like, who's Robin Lozier and Elvin Lott? Like, why is Elvin Lott playing on this team? Get a defender who's going to play these minutes, not a scorer. Yeah, the bench for the Cavs is awful. Now, I still think the Cavs have probably the three best players in this series. I think Efren Strong, Horacio Soda, and Maximo Brasido are like, oh, but Brasido is out. Oh, he broke his leg. I totally forgotten about that. That changes a lot. Sorry for my poor analysis, everybody. I just like to live in a world where guys' legs don't get broken, and if they do, it's only the Nuggets. Without Brasido, I pre-planned these predictions a little bit, just so I don't sound like an idiot on the mic, like this exact moment right here. But now I got to make a hot take, and my hot take is that the Hawks are going to win because Brasido is out. I think because Jesse doesn't whine enough in the chat, I didn't know that this happened. But without him, there's just nobody who's going to score for the Cavaliers. I think it'll be it's going to be Soda to some extent, but he's just not a high volume guy. It's almost like you want to bring in John Oliver and let him be the usage hog and see if he can get it done. But John Oliver is not a high efficiency guy. And then there's Elvin Lott, who is a scorer, but he really is just, it's not really what you want. Yeah. God, this is going to be a really ugly series. I can't believe these are the 3 and the 6 seed. I'm going to take the Hawks for the Cavs 2. I was going to pick the Cavs here pretty heavily if Maximo was playing. I was going to flip this, but now that's not going to be the case. I think given the lack of scoring, we're just going to see the Hawks win a lot of 90 to 70 games where the Cavs just cannot get an offensive foothold. So that's what I think is happening in the East. In the East, we're really just waiting to see the Nets Celtics in the ECF. Otherwise, the 76ers will be interesting. It'll be fun to see if Mobley can be a spoiler, but that's really the only drama we're here for in the East. Now, moving out West, things get a little more fun. I don't think there's a lot of West matchups that are going to be hard to predict, but at least the teams are better. So we'll start off with the Jazz versus the Sonics. So the Jazz are one of the three-headed favorites, or the trio of favorites in the West, along with the Grizz and the Nuggets, and they each bring their own flavor to the game. The Jazz are the mean three ball, and then offense. The Jazz are just pure offense. I think the Jazz still ended up with an elite defensive rating. The Jazz were 5th in offensive rating and 5th in defensive rating. But the reason I say I feel like the Jazz are pure offense is I think their offense is going to scale quite well in the playoffs, and their defense won't. Obviously, David Del Valle and Arden Justice are arguably unstoppable offensively. They rely on the three ball. It's really hard to stop the three ball. And then you add in Roger Bechtel, who, although he doesn't play very many minutes because he's a foul machine, does score efficiently in the minutes that he plays. So that trio right there, I just described 70 points of 65% true shooting offense, which is insane. Probably the best offensive trio in the league. In fact, without question, it is. The downside for the Jazz is I don't really love their interior defense. Look, I know Tony Pruitt has good ratings. I don't like Brian Midget at all. Grant Vitello is just unacceptable. He's terrible. His athleticism, it's all F minuses if I'm not mistaken. And then the rest of the bench guys, Neemias Queta and Negron, they're just not. None of them are defensive guys. So where that gets interesting is the Sonics are a complete interior attack, led by the breakout season of Todd Burnside, who is now scoring 26 points per game on 58.5% true shooting. And Todd Burnside is both 7'4" and athletic. So the big question, I think, is the Jazz have the ratings in this by a lot, although, as mentioned earlier, the Sonics have a really good rating. This is maybe the highest in terms of net margin 7 seed of all time. They almost have a plus minus of 9, which is like I said before, a plus minus of 9 is in years where it's less inflated numbers as a championship team. So the Jazz are just a better team, but the Sonics are really weird and interesting, and I think of all the big three in the West, match up best against the Jazz because Todd Burnside is going to go inside. Sengun is an inside guy, and like even though he's smaller, still I think the weakness for the Jazz is that interior defense because even though they have guys with high ratings, they don't really have a single player who has a combination of both athleticism and the post defense rating. So it's going to be a lot of Burnside. Now, the defensive side is the question for the Sonics. The Sonics have less about the pure defensive ratings and more rely on size. So, like, you know, guys like Aaron Roberts, who are an A perimeter defender and 6'10", like, is that good enough? Or do you need to be like A+, A+? Or like Z-Money, who's 6'4", right? That's a great size match against David Del Valle, but is only a B+, B+ defender. So can those guys work against the three ball is really what this is all going to come down to. I think the Jazz should win this. But the in-season series against the Jazz and the Sonics, I think, was either a tie or the Sonics won. I forget if we played 3 or 4 games, but the Sonics won 2 of them. And one of them was off just an explosive Todd Burnside game. I think for the Sonics, if Todd Burnside could go ham, that's going to be the thing that can flip the script. Otherwise, it will be just like the Sonics offense is not great. And so the rest of this team, like the Sonics are a weird team. The Sonics beat every elite team in the West or in the league, right? The Sonics have wins over the Jazz, the Nuggets, the Clippers, the Grizzlies, the Nets, the Celtics, every single good team. The Sonics won at least 1 or 2 in the season series against all these teams. The Sonics also dropped a million games against trash like the Bucks and the Knicks and just like awful teams. So which Sonics is going to show up? I don't know. If I was the Jazz, I would hate the fact that I have to play the Sonics in round 1 because the Sonics have good upset potential. But as the GM of the Sonics, this team, like, it's all just going to be, it's just high variance garbage. Like, even if I beat the Jazz, I just know this team isn't going anywhere. I still favor the Jazz, although it'll be fun to see how this team performs. The Sonics are kind of a younger team, so waiting for a little later for guys like George Bradley to pop off, Z-Money to pop off. Really, TC killed me this season. I'm a little salty, and I'm hoping there's brighter days ahead. I'm bringing in Cletus Millay. Hopefully he's good, blah, blah, blah. But the Jazz, I think, will move on for what would be a seriously saucy matchup of the Jazz and Nuggets if the Nuggets also pull it off. The West in the final rounds is going to be wild. Nuggets Thunder. So just like how the Jazz should be upset that they're catching an 8.7 plus minus team in round 1, the Nuggets should be hella upset that they're catching 11 plus minus team in round 1. The Thunder, just like how my Sonics are probably the best 7 seed of all time, I think these Thunder are maybe the best 6 seed of all time. The Thunder are kind of like the inside-interior combo of Prince Chapman and Isaiah Todd. Great size, great offense. The defense is not the best in the world. It depends on how you feel about like being 7'7" and athletic versus having a good post defense rating. So it's fine, but not great. And then Isaiah Todd is also like, yes, he's really athletic and 6'10" at power forward. I would consider plus height, but he's an A- defender. And then at guard, it's just like a bunch of kind of rock solid guys. David Adam, Constantinople, Ozymandias, Joseph Valdez, all very solid players. Not like star players, but they get the job done and they rely on the big boys. And then you have Granville coming off the bench, who's an offensive beast, although he's only contributing in limited minutes. The Nuggets are the most straightforward team in the league while being one of the best contenders. You're going to throw Damon Vogler and you're going to throw Cameron Turner at him and you're going to see what happens. Damon Vogler has been stopped in the playoffs a lot. And the number one thing that annoys Damon Vogler is good post defense. Now, I don't know if Prince Chapman and Damon Vogler have fought each other, but guys like Jules Jimenez and other 7-footers with A post defense have definitely slowed Vogler down. Prince Chapman has B post defense, so I don't know how I feel about that. I think it's kind of a wash. It's pretty even. The big question is whether the Thunder can stop Cameron Turner. And where that comes into play is whether Evan decides to play Cameron Turner at the power forward or at the guard slot. The advantage of playing Cameron Turner at the power forward slot is he's going to take a lot of good inside looks he becomes a useful defender as opposed to a net negative defender. But the downside is his matchup becomes Isaiah Todd, who is like maybe one of the better athletic matchups against Cameron Turner. Most people will just get completely blown out of the water by Cameron Turner's athleticism. Now, if you move Cameron Turner to the point guard, the upside is that you get to match him up against some dude like David Adams. And it's hard to imagine a guy like David Adams playing great defense against Cameron Turner, although you hurt Cameron Turner's shot chart. And now you have to figure out some dude who's going to replace Cameron Turner as your power forward. And for Evan, that's going to be a guy like Achakua or Brad Faircloth, who are like, they're bench guys. They're not fantastic. And then, yeah, so it's a tough decision. I think this series is actually going to be close. It's not a hot take to acknowledge Damon Vogler's struggles in the playoffs, and I'm going to do it right now. And I think Damon Vogler will struggle against this team because they have good size. It's just going to be a nail biter. I think the difference maker could honestly be Paolo for the Nuggets because Paolo has really good size and does score reasonably well. And I think he could take, some big lumps out of a David Adams who's just too small to stop Paolo. I just don't, the thing I might be missing here is that like Damon Vogler is just going to eat Prince Chapman up, or Prince Chapman won't care about Damon Vogler's defense. That would be more surprising. If Damon Vogler is too good for Prince Chapman, that could be the end of this series. But the Nuggets have home court, and this is a close one. I'm going to give the Nuggets the 4-3. But this is probably the single matchup. This and the one I'm about to talk about, the Clippers-Rockets. These are really the only two series that I'm hyped for in this entire first round. Because the East is pointless. They're all terrible. And the Jazz Sonics and the Grizz Mavericks, just like the teams, there's a little too much of a talent gap. All right. The Clippers-Rockets. This is going to be a 6 series. The Rockets it's a flip series. The Rockets have more wins than the Clippers. They're going to have home court. The reason the Rockets won 59 games, I'll get the big thing out. I don't like the Rockets at all. This team screams pub stomp team to me. I think this is a team that only wins because they play against a lot of teams that can't stop their two offensive weapons at Richard Caldwell and Ricky Trapp. I don't think that's going to be... There are going to be a lot of teams that can stop those two guys in the playoffs. Ricky Trapp, we've consistently seen not deliver in the playoffs. And he's getting older, so he doesn't have as good of athleticism. He's just not as good. And then the exact same thing for Richard Caldwell. Not as athletic as he was before. The efficiency is down. Just not the same player. The Rockets have a fantastic defense. It's great. I like Prizak, Kieva, Coach Beard, Ricky Trapp, and Claudio Villanueva, even Andrew Salavita. Those are all fantastic defenders. All that being said, I don't think their offense will hold through, right? Like, if there's just... All we need is an offense that can stop 2 of the 3 of Ricky Trapp, Marcus Bravo, and Richard Caldwell. And, like, the Rockets... How are the Rockets going to score 70 points? I don't know how the Rockets are going to score 70 points. Now, that brings us to the Clippers, right? I think the Clippers have exactly that. The Clippers have defenders in the right spots to stop this team. Owen Lamb Jr. plus Scotty Barnes, like, that's a limited defense in terms of against a giant monstrous center. Like, the Clippers will get absolutely bunched by, like, a Todd Burnside or a Damon Vogler or, like, a Clint Cochran, where it's like this 7'5", inside, athletic beast. But the Rockets have undersized guys that have high athleticism, and that's exactly what the Clippers have. Owen Lamb Jr., rock solid athlete, only 6'10", fantastic ratings. Scotty Barnes, rock solid athlete, only 6'8", but good defensive ratings, gets himself some boards. And then finally, Moses Moody, 6'5", AA defender. I think this makes me like the Clippers. There's a lot of reasons I don't like the Clippers, like I just said about the size, where I think there's a lot of matchups where the Clippers will get munched in these playoffs. I don't really trust the Clippers' offense when they start facing the big boys, but I think the Clippers got the perfect matchup here. I think what's going to happen is the Rockets' offense is going to get shut down. The only person I can see succeeding on offense for the Rockets is Ricky Trapp if he goes meme 3-ball. But even then, it's just like, I don't know. Jamie Jones is an A-plus defender. Moses Moody is an AA defender. It just seems like the Clippers can just probably lock this team up 100%. The meta part of this game, though, is that Bryant always seems to overachieve in the playoffs. Although this time I see less like opportunity for his team, so I don't like him as much. But I think it's going to be close. I think we got a barn burner, but I think the Clippers will flip the script, even though they're the away team, and take this one home. I can't believe I'm like backing a Doc-led squad, but Doc really got the perfect matchup here, I think. And then finally, we have the Grizzlies Mavericks. Look, the Grizz are great. They've like Barrett, Din, Randall English, and Alan Corpus panned out, which was huge for them because now they have like a very nice interior to go along with the unstoppable Arroyo Suggs guard duo. Arroyo, although he is not a defender anymore, still a fantastic scorer, and Suggs has still a season or two of like just pure unbridled eliteness before he dies. So the Mavs, Michael deserves a congratulations for riding this team for, I think this has been a building season for like the third season, and it's finally panned out into the playoffs. It's unfortunate that he's the 8th seed and he's going to get roasted by the Grizzlies because normally when you have a team like this, they would be a 6 seed, a 5 seed, it feels like. The East is just nuts. But to talk about Michael's team, there's less about the matchups here because this one I think is completely out of range. I don't see any world where they win. Carmichael Brown is just not good enough yet to beat that defense, that interior defense of the Grizz. And there's no guard that can really stop the defense of, or the offense of Arroyo and Suggs. Like, I'm sure in his head, he's thinking like, okay, I can put Gino Hurley. He's an AA defender, and I've got Jonathan Ratliff. But like, those guys are so harmful to the other side of the ball, and you can never truly stop the 3-ball that I just don't see it happening. Rick Bong is interesting, but just I don't think his defense is good enough. So yeah, I see this as being a pretty big blowout. But for the Mavericks, trade Cristiano Maras. Michael, this is a classic RBSL thing that when you're a more experienced GM, you'll get, and maybe you already get it, but Cristiano Maras should have been traded 2 seasons ago. His value was nuts. He's just empty calories. He doesn't score anywhere close to efficiently enough, but he's got that purple tag, and he has high volume. There's some dumb GM that's going to salivate and trade a shitload for this guy, and he's not going to do anything for you. He's worth a lot less now because his contract is shit, and when you look at his ratings now, it's like, oh, he's kind of capped out, and he's got not a lot to offer. This dude is just a worse Maximo. Yeah, I think he's actively harming your team. Like, you want shots to be going to Carmichael Brown or Rick Bong. They're more efficient scorers, and they also play defense at the same time. So while you're going to have a tough playoff run this season, there are bright days ahead. You have a great young squad, but I really think you got to get rid of Cristiano Maras, man. Send that boy to the East. Get some good assets in return. You could have a good squad. So with that, let me just mark this down. Maybe I'm going to give the Mavs could get one win. 3-ball based teams are high variance. I say that's like one of those canned Zach lines at this point. But these are my predictions. I think in the East, it's going to be a boring second round while we watch the Celtics and Nets clean up. The Nets 76ers could have a little sauce. And then out West, the Grizz, while the Grizz get it easy, the Nuggets Jazz, that's insane. That's just such a banger. And it's a second round matchup. And then we get the winner against the Grizz. Oh, it's going to be good. So I'm moderately hyped for these playoffs. I'm more hyped for the future rounds where we're going to see the big boys fight. But anyways, thank you for watching. Have a great day, and toodles.